Hi, I'm Rachel McLeod, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker, mental health therapist, and emotional wellness coach. And I help people do the brain work for resolving symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. And today really want to talk with you about how you can tell if the intervention that you're using will actually help you get rid of symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. Okay, especially because I I have had a mental health disorder. I have had lots of symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, and I am really um, I was interested in just getting rid of them. I need these to stop. And so with my clients, I'm the same way. I feel the same consideration. Like we need to get symptoms out of the way. We need to use our time effectively. And so, my very first objective when working with somebody is to match them with interventions that will get them results. And I'm looking for specific things when to tell me their brain likes this. This intervention can help their brain complete the symptom resolution process, the brain's natural symptom resolution process. And so once we got one of those on board, we are rocking. I actually like to test people. I like to test out several different interventions because different situations will require different interventions. Specifically, like if somebody is in a meeting and they are starting to have a panic attack, as we do, some interventions would be too embarrassing to use in the middle of everybody. Right. And so I want to make sure they have a couple in their back pocket so that they can use them and that nobody can see that they're working with their brain right now, so that they can get out of this panic attack and even help their brain process it so that there's always a chance that once you work on it in a moment, it never recurs again. It's like the one and done. I love those. And they happen, but you never know when they're going to happen. You don't know how much support the brain needs to resolve a symptom. And so I really like to be prepared. I'm always prepared with like the whole backpack and then one time of interventioning and the symptom stops and it's done forever. I mean, that's a huge win. But a lot of times we're here to support the brain, and the brain will tell us if it needs more support or not. By if it doesn't need any more support, then you don't see the symptom again. If it needs more support, it will let you know. The symptom will reduce for a moment, and then it will kick back up again later or re-trigger. But if the right intervention is on, you should notice transformation. That's what I want to talk about because this is something that I do all the time, but my goal is that you're doing this stuff for yourself. And so I want to show you some of the things that I'm looking for so that you can look for them yourself. And that if it's not getting you these results, that you pick up a different intervention and try that. And you try a couple until you've got a couple that work for you. Okay. Now, I'm going to tell you, I have all of these interventions. I give trainings of them in my Facebook group. You can find that through. I have a link on in the heading here that will take you to my website. You can join my Facebook group from there. If you join my email list, you know I am going to be sending you interventions to try out right away. And that's because I want people to be equipped to support their brain. Okay, now here we go. No, I'm going to tell you a couple more things. I didn't used to in the beginning like to give people interventions because I didn't like giving them these really powerful tools and them not knowing if it was working or not, and then them being discouraged and then not using it anymore. And then they'd form these ideas, oh, that just doesn't work for me. When in fact, I wish I could have been in there and like, oh, I can show you if it's working for you or not. And that's my intention for this is that I want to show you if it's working because sometimes you're using one of these interventions, you will get massive results. The very first time I used this, I used it one time for this racing thoughts I had at night, insomnia. I used it, I fell right to sleep. I used it twice. I yawned and then I fell right to sleep. I never had that problem again. It was a one and done. I was very impressed. And I was like, what else can I try this on? And I went off. But many times I've used these interventions a lot. And a lot of times the results are so subtle. If you don't know what you're looking for, you won't notice anything. And you'll think this isn't working for you, and then you'll stop it. Right. So the idea occurred to me, let me show you so you know. Okay. And so um yeah, I want to tell you that I have some notes here, but I kind of am at the point where I just want to jump in. Um, So when you're using an intervention, and you know the ones I start people with emotional freedom techniques, then an intervention from thought filled therapy, um, energy medicine, and last I will hand over and teach them how to use EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. That's a massive intervention with some really gnarly side effects that I don't just hand out right away. You need to have some skills first. I need to know you can work with your brain and you have other modalities, because if this gets too intense, I want you to be able to jump back in with one of these other ones and ground yourself and come back into calm and relax and not fly off the handle, as EMDR can lead people to do. So these are the interventions I use, and I've tested, and they all seem to, when people are using them, there's a specific process the brain goes through that lets you know it's working. Okay, and when it goes through this, it's not necessarily always in the same order. Though the first ones I'm going to talk about are kind of the same order. Sometimes you'll be using an intervention and it'll skip to the end, and you'll see the end process starting. Sometimes you'll just notice a little bit of the first process. All of that's really, really important to your brain. Even if it's just the very first process, it's huge, right? Use it again. Help it through that first process, even if it takes a lot of tapping or a lot of interventioning or a lot of collarbone breathing, whatever intervention you're doing. Keep going, because your brain you're moving, right? Some of these symptoms are like trying to push a boulder up a hill, right? And it's like, if you get it a couple of feet, please celebrate that. Okay, so this is what you'll notice when using an intervention. Um, the first thing you'll notice is a reduction in the activation that you're experiencing of the symptom. So if the symptom is racing thoughts, you might notice that, boy, it's like a 10 up in there, and then all of a sudden it'll be less intense. It'll slow down to a 5, right? That's you're winning. If it comes down to an 8, it was a 10, now it's 8, it's working. This is exactly what we should be seeing. We want to get things down to a 0. It doesn't always happen because some symptoms are intertwined with other ones. And that's why we want some more advanced skills, but we're going to use the same interventions, because the skills are to help us guide the brain in a specific way. Right here, we're talking about interventions because we're talking about the support we're going to keep giving the brain. We're going to help the brain crank the symptom resolution wheel. I'm sure there's a wheel in there and there's a handle, and you go like this. The interventions get in there and they do this with the wheel. And the next thing you know, the brain is processing better. Okay. Because sometimes the wheel gets stuck right here. And so you need to get in there and help crank it. I promise that's what's happening in the brain. The neuroscientists don't even know that they need to draw pictures of that. But that's the first thing you'll notice, is the reduction in activation. If you're having a panic attack and you're using this, you should notice the panic attack lightening. That means that the right intervention is on. If you're having a panic attack and you're using emotional freedom techniques and it's not coming down, I suggest a collarbone breathing, or I suggest an intervention from energy medicine, right? Those are really wonderful ones. If you're already activated like that, I personally would not throw EMDR in it, but as a matter of fact, I did once. I once had a massive panic attack. It was like the biggest one I've ever had. And I'd had many, and I had already been tapping, and I was like, oh, my body's communicating to me. I wonder what's, but it got so big that I was like, okay, intervention time. Because I was just going to sit and watch it. But I like these kinds of things. It's like nurses with gory wounds. They show each other pictures. Did you see this gross wound? Did you see this one? I'm kind of like that with symptoms. Okay. So, and brain trauma and emotional wounds. So anyway, and responses that the brain does. So I was going to watch it, but then I was like, I can't watch it any longer because it's just too big. So I used an EMDR strategy, and it got me right out. So, sometimes I'm a little judgmental with EMDR. I'm going to have to review that on my own time. Okay. But as I started using the alternating bilateral stimulation aspect of EMDR. I started this, and my body was numbing out, and I was like, interesting. My legs are going numb. My arms are going numb. And then it got to here, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. And so I was like, okay, intervention. And then it started receding, and I could feel my face come back in. I could feel my body, and it was like it spread from the inside out. And so that let me know that was right intervention. But I assure you, had that not worked, I would have moved to the next one. right? The second one is that you will notice the second thing you'll see. So the first thing usually is the reduction in intensity of the activation of the symptom. The second thing is you'll notice an increase in calm in the mind and body. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. If you're using an intervention and you check back in and you're feeling more calm in your body, a lot of times like we'll have tightness in our chest, and after an intervention we should see that loosen up, if not all the way down. I like it to use a numbering scale in the beginning just so that clients can track this, but they usually throw it out pretty quickly, and so we don't use it for very long. But if you imagine on a scale of 0 to 10, you can rate these things, use your intervention, and see how intense is it now. You know, how you can even rate how calm is my body. It's not 0. And then you can use an intervention and then notice it's maybe a 2, right? So we want to see a movement in that lets us know we've got the right intervention on. The third thing that you'll notice is new thoughts. You'll just, while you're here, like in your panic attack, let's say, because that's a big one, you might notice new thoughts like, I think we've done this before, or I don't know if it's as at panic as it is, or we'll notice that, oh, there's somebody else in the room, or just new thoughts. And so that's one to explore for you, because you'll have to, but it's good for you to start looking in your brain and seeing if this stuff is going on, right? Because I want you to be really great at your inner world, and I want you to understand your inner processes. Okay. Um, the fourth thing that you're going to notice after using intervention, if the intervention is working, is you're going to notice a decrease in emotional reasoning and an increase in objectivity. You're going to be, instead of in a panic attack, I'm going to die, I'm losing control, you're going to notice more objectivity. This thing happened and it triggered me. Or you're going to notice, I feel really hot, I feel really cold. You're going to notice those sorts of thoughts, as opposed to the wild emotional reasoning that can happen. And I am not downplaying emotional reasoning. That is a sign that the brain needs support in processing, or is working on something and doesn't need our support. So a lot of us feel really bad about, I'm so emotional. No, this is actually how humans work, and it's how brains build things. And so if you've got a lot of emotions running around, you're about to build something very powerful. So especially if you don't block the process. Okay. So um, so if you're being more objective about something, like you can count it, you can quantify it, you can qualify it. If you're doing some of those things, that's a sign that that's a prefrontal cortex activity, right? When we're activated and triggered, we're in the back of the brain in a survival state. And that's not a reasoning center. You will not see objectivity while you're back there. You're not going to see, unless, okay, there's some caveats there, right? But let's not be too nerdy at this moment. But you're not going to see a bigger perspective. You're not going to see, that thought part of the brain is about survival. You'll only see that survival aspect. When the front of the brain starts turning back on, you'll start to see more front brain activity. And that lets you know, like if you're using an intervention because you're in a survival state, and you're using an intervention, even if it's a light survival state and not a total big one like a panic attack, right? But you're in a survival state, you use the intervention, you should see the front of the brain start turning on and start becoming active about what we're paying attention to, which is the symptom, right? And so we'll see more objectivity. And the last thing you're going to notice, and this is when, anyway, the last thing you'll notice is solution generation, or solution synthesis. Okay, you'll start to see the front of your brain start to solve this problem. I wonder what we could do here, and it'll start. Well, we could try this, and we could try that. In the beginning, especially if you've got a whole anxiety disorder, or a massive anxiety, depression, or traumatic distress problem, or one of those disorders, a lot of times these solutions, when they first start generating, their solutions aren't very good. Just because so much of the information they need hasn't made it through the process, the brain's healing process yet. And so the solutions will look like they have holes in them. And so, but the fact that we start seeing them lets us know, hey, we're moving. The process, we just got some stuff through, and the front of the brain is like, ooh, what are we going to do with this? Because its job is to make solutions. And so it's like over there making solutions. Our job then is to get it more information. And so we're going to keep using the interventions. And that's those, and I walk people through an 8-part strategy for this because we want to help with this layer first, and that will give us the building material for the next layer. And then we want to do this work, and then that will help us for the building material of this work, right? And then we help the brain do all the work that it wants to do to create health and wellness and to resolve these symptoms, and to be able to, we want the brain to also be able to resolve these symptoms on its own without us needing to manually get in there and run the crank, right? But if you've got an anxiety, depression, or trauma disorder, or a massive problem with these issues, um, we need to run that crank. We need to push that. And these interventions are really, really wonderful for that. So that this video was really to give you a guide and to help you have some points of reflection and have some the ability to tell if the intervention is getting you results or not. The interventions I talked about in the first part of the program, they take to 30 seconds to 2 minutes to get to notice results. Okay, I lead with ones I are easy to learn, get your results for the majority of people, and um, so I lead with that, and I like to give people those right away. And then I give a little bit more complicated, but probably even more powerful intervention. And then, but it's way complicated. You're not going to use this in a boardroom, probably, unless I'm in there training you. Okay. Uh, so these, but I don't, you have interventions yourself. There are tons of interventions out there. So even though I'm giving you these ones, you might already, brain spotting is one. Breath work is another one. I haven't tested those using my process, so I don't know how they fit in exactly, but they do. And if you have your own intervention that you're already using and you're already getting results, you're really set up and you're positioned well to really get in there and resolve your anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress problems. Okay, so, and you can really clean your life out of these symptoms so that you can enjoy your life, enjoy your relationships, and enjoy the success that you are already creating or that you really want to create in your life. So there's that. If you want interventions to play with, or you want to talk more about this stuff, you want to ask me some questions, join my Facebook group, join my email list, and I'll see you around. Take care.